The one and only Xylophoney to show you guys my new favorite Exodia deck, mixing Sky Strikers in with Exodia. Now, Sky Strikers have been very prevalent lately, climbing to the top of the meta almost as soon as they came out, and they can be devastating. But we're not going to stuff this deck with Sky Strikers because I imagine the more Sky Strikers are thrown here, the more the deck will win. But we also want to focus on Exodia with this deck, just so it's fun. So we have a good little balance of about 50-50 in here, and I'm going to show you how it works. Now, if you're unfamiliar to Sky Strikers, I guess we'll go over them real quick, but essentially they're going to let me send a lot of cards to the graveyard so I can thin out my deck, and they are a lot of draw power at the same time, and just casual utility while doing all of those things. So, essentially the main card with the Sky Strikers is this Sky Striker Mobilizing Gauge. Now, this card will get me one of the Sky Striker cards from my deck to hand, thinning it out, and will let me draw a card, meaning I can draw. The main thing about this is I can recycle this Mobilizing Gauge using all of the other cards, so I can continually use it, sometimes up to 5 or 6 times a duel. I don't know the actual math, but that feels like the case sometimes, because of these Link monsters. Now, these Link monsters are brought out by just using one of the Sky Striker monsters. I just have one Sky Striker Ray in this deck. It's not really always the one I go with because there's also a spell card here, Mecha Hornet Drones, gives you a token that can do the same purpose. So you just put that token out on the field, switch it out for one of these monsters. Hayate here puts one of your Sky Striker spells from your deck to the grave, thinning it out. Kagari lets you bring one of those spells in your grave to your hand, meaning an easy way to get your engage. And this Shizuku will let you essentially just bring something to your hand at the end of the turn, so you have a play to finish off on. You can just go into each of these in one turn. You just put one of these drones out, then you go into Hayate, use its effect, go into Kagari, use its effect, and then end your turn with the Shizuku on the field. It's a pretty effective thing. Now, while they're searching those cards, of course you want to get as many engages used as possible, but the other cards, I have about 5 of them in here, are just some pretty useful utility. They can destroy spells, traps, banish, cancel effects, all the general things you kind of want to do in Yu-Gi-Oh!, especially in the current meta. And you could always switch out these cards for some of the other ones, or like go more heavy on the effect canceling if you want, but I found this was a pretty decent balance for me. And plus, I always want to be able to search more of them. So, we have 5 of those in here. We have 3 of the Hornet Drones, and of course 3 Startup Engages, or Mobilize Engage, as it's called now. So that's essentially all it is, and then sometimes when you send one of them to the graveyard, if you already have plenty of spells in the graveyard, because for most of these cards to get their secondary effect, you gotta have 3 spells in the graveyard. Very easy to do with this deck, but worth noting. Anyway, this card is just usually one of the later plays you want to do, or sometimes you just draw this card and that's another way to start the whole chain. It's not the biggest card in the deck, but it also has a good graveyard effect that you can just stall out your opponent longer if it is in the grave, so it's pretty handy. Aside from that, I guess we can quickly move on to our Exodia stuff. Now, you know how Exodia works, right? You have these 5 cards. Once you get all 5 of these to your hand, you win the duel. Now, I did consider just making this a draw power Sky Striker deck instead of my normal graveyard Exodia deck, but I found that the graveyard type of Exodia deck had a lot more utility and a whole lot more survivability. Let me explain how the graveyard system works. Essentially, you want to send usually all the arms and legs to the graveyard and then pull them back to your hand from there using Dark Factory and Backup Soldier. These 5 cards will essentially just get those normal monsters back to your hand. Those, however, can't get the head to your hand, so we have other ways to make that happen. And to get those pieces into the grave, 1, we have all of the thinning power that we were talking about, and 2, we have this card, Obliterate. Now, Obliterate, you send one of those Exodia pieces to the grave, and then you get to send one of your opponent's card back to the hand, which lets you defend yourself for a really long time. And even if your opponent decides to destroy your Obliterate, that just gets you an Exodia piece from your graveyard to your hand, which, if you used it once, you're going to have. So that's pretty handy when it comes down to that. So you essentially just want to get most of the Exodia pieces into the graveyard as quick as possible, and then get them right back to your hand to win the duel. Now, if your opponent's running something that banishes cards from the graveyard, you pretty much lost the duel. So in here we have Pot of Acquisitiveness, just as a side deck card in case you need to decide, okay, maybe I need to be able to bring some banished monsters back because this is not good. So deck clearly has its weaknesses, I'm not gonna lie, but for the most part against most decks, it works phenomenally. Now, another way to get the cards sent to the graveyard is this little guy over here, Curry Bandit. It's a dark monster, so it can be used for a couple other things in this deck. But it also sends 5 cards from your top of your deck to your graveyard, and you get to pull a spell back in case you need to, or a trap card too, in case you need to either, start up the whole Sky Striker system, or if you need to get a backup soldier to get those Exodia pieces back. We also have Reasoning, which sends more cards to the graveyard. Excellent. We have 1-for-1, which sends one from your hand to the graveyard and throws an Exodia piece onto the grave, which can then just be swapped out for, well, anything or a Link Haribo, just to get that to the grave as well. And what else do we have to send stuff to the grave? I think that's pretty much it for the most part, at least for the main deck cards. And then for draw power, we have Upstart Goblin, because, well, why not thin out the deck some more? We have ourselves a Day of Peace, because that stalls plus gives you another card. And then we have the Spellbook Engine, because, well, all the Exodia pieces are spellcasters anyway, so if you need to send them to the graveyard to work with the spellbooks, you can. Or you can just use the Spellbook of Secrets and the Spellbook Magician of Prophecy, Spellbook of Knowledge to draw 2 cards. Works really well, and gets you more spell cards into the graveyard to really utilize the Sky Striker stuff. What cards have I not spoken about yet? I think I pretty much covered it all except for the, well, Sanguine is just a really cheap way to get the Exodia head to your hand. You don't need Sanguine in this deck, but it's good for a couple different reasons, so why not run one of them? And then on top of that, we also have the Treasure Panda. Now, Treasure Panda can be a really quick way to win. If you have yourself a backup soldier and a Treasure Panda, you can do some really nasty stuff. Essentially, Treasure Panda, you just get rid of 1 spell or trap from your graveyard, which this deck does very easily, and then you can put an Exodia piece onto the field, special summon, just like that. You can do this continuously, so you can get 4 Exodia pieces onto the field in 1 turn. It's pretty nuts, meaning you'll have 5 monsters on the field to go into, any crazy Link monster. You could throw a Borload in here. Personally, I have a Skull Dread, just so you can, search through your cards a little bit better, if you want to go like that. But usually when I get all those pieces on the field, well, one, that fields all the Exodia pieces to the graveyard, so you can go into Backup Soldier getting all those pieces to your hand instantly. So that's pretty handy. But you also get to go into stuff such as the Nightmare Unicorn and Nightmare Phoenix, which, one, have some good utilities to get rid of stuff on the field and send it back and whatnot. And they let you draw a card, so it's just a little bonus extra draw on these types of cards, the Nightmare cards, and that works pretty well. Actually, I haven't really used the Nightmare Goblin too much, so if you want to switch something else out into your deck, feel free to switch that guy out. But it is more potential draw power if you do get it all going. And then Skull Dread, as I said, you can draw 4 cards and then just send 3 back. Can get you a very important card in, times of need. Plus, you pretty much just using it to get these Exodia pieces off the field anyway, because they're not very strong and you don't want your opponent to banish them or anything like that. So that's where that goes. Then in the extra deck, we also, I guess I've pretty much talked about most of the stuff already, but we have not spoken about Apprentice Witchling. Now this just needs 2 dark monsters, which is why we, keep the Sanguine. We have a Jester in here just so we can use it if we need to spellbook it away or sacrifice a dark monster. Pretty much the only 2 reasons for it, but it's never really been a dead card in my hand. So we have that so it can do that purpose, and it can just be more Link material on top of all those things. And Curry Bandit can also be a dark monster for this, and any Exodia piece and Ray. There's a lot of dark monsters in here, so you can bring out Witchling, and this is one of the few ways of bringing the Exodia head from your graveyard to your hand. Because when this card's destroyed, usually just by attacking into one of my opponent's monsters and winning the game, it brings you one of your dark monsters back from the graveyard. Any of them, so it can be your Exodia the Forbidden One. I think there's one other way to get stuff back to hand. Oh yes, of course, Exodia Incarnate. You just pretty much summon him by tributing 1 Exodia piece, and then you can pull any of the Exodia pieces back to your hand at the end of the turn. And when he's destroyed, say you're sitting on 3 or 4 Exodia pieces already, you get to draw 3 or 4 Exodia pieces, depending on the amount of Exodia pieces in your hand. It's pretty convenient. Now, I think I've talked about this deck long enough. Here's just some other cards that, can be side decked, have been considered. If you think any of these might be a good idea, feel free to throw them in a deck. Now, Lilith was a big consideration because it can help you get the backup soldier, but unfortunately it can't help you get Obliterate because it's continuous. Otherwise I would run it, plus another dark monster. But I think we are ready to show you guys some replays. It's time to duel! I just noticed I had like 10 replays to show you guys, so we'll see. Ooh, going up against some Pendulum nonsense. Look at all these guys. It could be a really hard duel. Clearly my opponent's going to have a lot of plays to make, so we're going to have to find a way to get around this, and, well, the way to get around this is with Exodia. So, as you can see, we have a pretty decent hand. We're starting off with the Forbidden One in our hand, so we never have to really ditch that or anything. And we got a Sky Striker Mobilize Engage, so we can start some Sky Striker plays. But our opponent, you know, did some decent Nightmare stuff to set up their field. So essentially, what I'm doing here is I'm using Mobilize Engage so I can get these Sky Striker Mecha Hornet drones. I'm doing that instead of using the Ace Ray, because I don't want to waste my normal summon when I might be able to do some Treasure Panda plays in this turn. So this will let me start up this whole combo I talked about. I'm going to use Kagari to start off and pull the Mobilize Engage back to my hand, letting me use it once again. But the main thing I want to do now, since I don't have 3 spells in the graveyard yet, is I want to get 3 spells in the graveyard before I use this again so I can get the +1 draw power. So if I just attack directly with Hayate, which it can do, I can send 1 more card to the graveyard. That's 2 spells in grave. So now what we're going to do is go ahead and use the 1-for-1, just so we can get that out onto the field. And pretty much just end the phase there, because I probably forgot that I couldn't use Mobilize Engage when I had a monster on my field, and even if I blink this off into something. I didn't have any major plays to do, so let's just leave it as a wall. And, oh no, I did that on purpose, because with Shizuku, what you want to do is not have the Mobilize Engage in your graveyard, because you can only pull cards from your deck that are not in your graveyard. It's a little complicated, but essentially now next turn I will get a +1 twice, so, and be able to just search more Sky Striker cards at the same time. So it should work out fine, and I'll be able to use Kagari again to then do this again. So it's 3 uses of this. So yeah, this duel looks like I'm gonna have 5 uses of Mobilize Engage that I can think of. So having those pieces on the grave, you know, seemed to defend me well enough. My opponent brought out some crazy stuff, some decent attack power and a Skull Dread, but nothing that was too much for me. Clearly, with this many life points on a field like that, I'm gonna need to make my move now, so let's see what I can do. I have a backup soldier and a Treasure Panda and Exodia the Forbidden One in my hand. Oh, and I have Dark Factory, so I think I have everything I need to win here, and I probably wouldn't even need the Mobilize Engages, but we're of course going to start with those. Oh no, he negated my effect. Okay, I'll do it again. So we can start the whole chain just by pulling that to our hand. Kagari, oh, could we not pull something to our hand? Oh yeah, one of his cards preventing me from pulling it to my hand. So we're just going to throw a bunch of cards out, and now we're going to go for the backup soldier Treasure Panda combo. So we're going to use Treasure Panda. Remove a spell from the graveyard, doesn't matter what it is, Exodia piece. So on, so forth, Exodia piece. So on, Exodia piece. And we're now going to go into this little combo to get rid of that. Get me a nice little +1. That's 2 pieces back. And why did I not go all the way there? I probably could have, but I didn't think it. Maybe I didn't have enough monsters in the graveyard to use backup soldier, because you do need to have 5 monsters, which I absolutely did. Well, either way, I should be fine. Right? Because or maybe I'm just trolling with the backup soldier. Oh yeah, I just had to set it that turn. So, there we go. Duel! This is going to be an interesting replay. We see a Droll and Lockbird and Trickstars. Okay. So, this time I was unfortunately given the first go, so I just make a really boring play with Shizuku to try to get that Mobilize Engage to my hand, but it stopped with Infinite Impermanence. So I got nothing, but Shizuku on the field will at least give me a defensive wall that's semi-decent against Trickstars. Looks like he's going to destroy my jamming waves at the end of the turn, mostly out there just as a bait, so I wanted to get another spell into the graveyard, and that could work out. So, and of course I could potentially use it if he did set cards, but it doesn't look like it's exactly going to get any use here. So we have our Ray out here, which will, you know, block for us a little bit, and we will take a bit of damage from that Licorice right there. So, there goes that before I can pop its effect and destroy this Trickstar reincarnation that I didn't know. So, I start taking damage, 400 with every single card I draw, due to this little combo, and I'm just gonna take it. So we go for our direct attack to get that Mobilize into the graveyard, get it back to my hand, and ow, and then it's just reincarnated anyway. This is rough. and this hand is certainly not doing me any big favors. So we're going to take a significant amount of damage here, get Droll and Lockbirded, so I can't even make any more plays if I wanted to. Go for Shizuku and forget that I can't even get anything back because I was Droll and Lockbirded, so fantastic. So right now we're just sitting on 2 cards in hand, Sangan on the field, but enough to defend myself for the turn, so that's a direct attack. I switch out for Shizuku just to lower the damage on that, because Shizuku, the more spells you have in your graveyard, it reduces the attack points of your opponent. So 3 spells in grave, reduced by 300. That switched out for that, of course, and we get a Candina to the field, which lets the Licorice come out again. Sangan gets destroyed, though, so I get an Exodia piece to my hand, the head, but we're probably going to have to do some desperate measures here. So, what am I going to draw to save the day? Day of Peace. That'll at least buy me a turn. Well, it'll also hurt me a little bit, but I do get to pull out my leg, which lets me get the Incarnate out here, which should protect me long enough, now that I have Day of Peace, and it'll get the leg back to my hand. Hopefully let me draw enough cards, because if the leg's back in my hand when this guy is destroyed, that'll be +2 cards. Not too bad. Scapegoats get used, because my opponent probably figures, well, you can't kill him anyway. Sure, I'll pop it now. And I don't take battle damage, thank goodness, from the Trickstar nonsense. So, for now, it's just, oh, that another Droll and Lock. It's so scary. So we see some of these cards come out to get them a little bit of draw power. The Droll and Lock is burned just so they can get a nice Nightmare field. And, well, their effects do not affect Incarnate. I think my opponent didn't know that. So, go for your attacks, nothing happens, but, of course, this turn, it's all or nothing, because this burn's gonna hurt. Oh boy, oh boy. Still, I gotta make some draws here, so we're gonna attack, just so I can send him to the graveyard. This is absolutely all or nothing, and get a +2 from these Exodia pieces in hand. One's another Exodia piece, I need 2 more pieces, and I got the Startup Engage, or Mobilize Engage, and I have a Jester Spellbook combo. So, what we're gonna do here, actually looking at the life points, I can't afford to do the Jester in this, because that would mean I'd lose 800 life points, so what we gotta do is we gotta find a quick way to destroy this Licorice, and we're going to pull, instead of, you know, more cards to continue Sky Striker combo that is just gonna get me killed, I pull the Widow Anchor to my hand. This one will cancel its effect, bring it to my side of the field, meaning no more burn damage, and I get to actually use that, get another +1. I had Reinforcement of the Army in it this time, just so I could pull Ray and thin out my deck at the same time, but since I only run one Ray, that's a nice little tongue twister, it's not really super crucial right now, and then I can use my normal summon for the Treasure Panda. Now, I need to find a way to get some cards. So I'm not able to do any crazy plays with the Treasure Panda because I have Exodia pieces in my hand and graveyard already. I can only pull 1 out, but it's still 3 monsters that I can utilize, especially because my opponent has arrows I can co-link with, and that's gonna be the reason I win, I think. So let's go ahead and bring out a Nightmare Phoenix. I just have to discard a card, and that'll give me a draw 1, which was the backup soldier. And I also Cerberus over to here with that, because I can, and now, all I have to do is pop it, and backup soldier. Ooh, so close! So close. I think this game I was actually bantering with my opponent in chat too, and it could not have been closer than that. Let's check out another replay. What's this one gonna be? I don't know. Ooh, we up against some dinosaurs. Ah, Droll and Lock again? What? Okay. Droll and Lock is great. I mean, honestly, Droll and Lockbird is more prevalent right now because it stops the Sky Striker spam, which has been pretty common lately, so he is going to get everything he needs. He's going to use a play that I actually haven't seen very often, Armageddon Knight, to send the Overtext to the graveyard to get the, well, the Evolution Pill to hand, which means they have Armageddon Knight and Quatless. That's 2 monsters that they can use the Evolution Pill for, and freely summon an Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. Not a bad play. So there's a chance here that, ooh, geez. And if this Armageddon Knight was another dinosaur, they would have the unstoppable field. But they unfortunately had the first turn there, otherwise I would be doomed. So second turn's always a good thing. We're going to go ahead with that Mobilize Engage and use this Hornet Drones, start off the combos, see what I can do here. Bring a Hayate to get another spell to the graveyard. Might as well attack the Armageddon Knight, because one less monster on the field. And I can actually beat it, so we're going to just send a Hornet Drones to the graveyard, because why not? Now we're going to Sky Striker, mobilize, engage, get a nice little draw one, get it brought back to our hand, draw one again, and yeah, we filled up our hand really quickly and burned through 5 cards. Plus, look at all this Sky Striker utility we have, and I haven't even played that yet. Nice. The reason I play the Upstart Goblin later is because if I need spells in the graveyard, I'll play it. If I don't, I'm going to let my Sky Strikers do their thing first and thin out the deck, so I can hopefully draw more important cards such as the Dark Factory. So, he still has a very scary field that I have to contend with. So I'm going to use the Afterburners to destroy a monster on his side of the field, and I'm going to normal summon, since I haven't used a normal summon, just to get left arm out there, and switch it out to get my +2 off the spellbook. And, well, yeah, we can work with this. You know, maybe Jester hasn't been the most useful draw for me, because I seem to usually have other cards that I can spellbook away. But he goes for an Underclock, manages to get himself that. My mouse disconnected, but it's fine. Oh, no, it's back. It's back. So we have the Giant Rex and the Soul Eating Oviraptor onto the field. He has that in hand, so he's about to do some good things. The Ultimate Conductor Tyranno hits the field. And Underclock is going to do some stuff, but I am going to quickly make it so my Shizuku cannot be destroyed or affected by your effects. So that'll stop things nicely. Nope, can't be destroyed. Nope, can't be destroyed. Nope, can't be destroyed. So I've somehow protected myself against this field. So not too bad. Not too bad. Okay, so we are going to switch it out for a Kagari so I can get that card back from the graveyard. You know it. The engage, get that draw one, and we get ourselves another card to thin ourselves out. And then we do this, and we can switch the Widow Anchor to get me the Ultimate Conductor Tyranno. Thank you, Widow Anchor. And, well, you know, I go to use the effect, not realizing I canceled my own effect. And, you know, he can just use his effect. But I can just flip it right back up, so it's not that bad. And it ends up being, this was a complete accident. I would love to say that this was, oh, I thought that out. You know, I put my own guy at risk, so he would send me face down, so I could flip up and send him face down and have my own Ultimate Conductor Tyranno with the effect. But no, I just kind of got a lucky misplay here. Okay, so we do use the Jester with the spellbook here and manage to get ourselves more cards. Still not an Exodia win here, but we have stolen an Ultimate Conductor Tyranno and destroyed another one of his Ultimate Conductor Tyrannos. And I have Dark Factory and Treasure Pandas in my hand for next turn. Sangan on the field so I can get the head to my hand. So this looks like we pretty much have an almost win condition with the Exodia. But we might just do it by attack points. Look, he's got nothing. He takes back the Ultimate Conductor, but I have, well... not much. Sangan gets that Exodia head to my hand. Kagari goes down. Ray comes out to the field. Foolishly, I use the effect. So then I try to make up for it a little bit by switching out Ray for another Kagari so I can get another startup to my hand. Might as well get something out of that misplay. And I still take 1,000 damage, but whatever. Looks like this turn we're going to be able to make some big plays because I get to start up again. I hard draw an Exodia piece. And, well, I don't even need to start up because once I saw that piece hit my hand, I was like, alright, we got it. Treasure Panda, pull out those other pieces we need. Pull out those other pieces we need. So we get those cards to the graveyard using Link Haribo and Incarnate. Then we're able to pull 2 back to the hand with that, and Incarnate will do the last one at the end phase. We win. Excellent. So I think you guys have seen a pretty good idea of this so far. Let me just see if there's any other really good replays to show you guys. Ooh, we got some red eyes and stuff in here that we can contend with. Now, I don't see any reason why I should lose this one, but obviously he sets up with a Meteor Black Comet Dragon. Not too bad. I go for my Spellbook of Secrets to start thinning out the deck, and I already have a Spellbook of Knowledge and a Jester that I can use, so plenty of Spellbook potential here. He manages to get another Red Eyes to the field. I want to try to get those guys off the field as soon as possible, but first let me get some spells to the grave. Luckily, I pull out a Reasoning, and I get to put the Treasure Panda to the field. I think I know where this is going. Oh, geez. Yeah, because we have 3 spells in Graveyard already once we get some Sky Striker plays. But we have a Treasure Panda getting all of our Exodia pieces to the grave. So, let's go ahead and just use it to its full extent. Why not? Let me get out a nice juicy Link monster. use my normal summon to get our spellbook out here. And I always go for the spellbook first so I can thin out the deck. But he does do some stuff and cancels a couple things I'm doing. But I can still go for the Nightmare plays. One will get rid of his big guy. And also I get to discard and draw a new card. Sangan, sure, why not? Nothing major from me yet, though. But not terrible of a field. Actually, kind of probably had a bit more potential there, didn't really use it. He goes into a Metal Flare Dragon, though, so not bad. That'll start burning me every time I pop effects. Luckily, when these guys are linked up, they can't get destroyed, so that'll keep my field alive. So we're just going to take a little bit of chunky life point damage there. He's going to swap it out for Proxy Dragon. I can only assume that was a misplay, because that was a horrible play. I go for the Curry Bandit play, just go for some regular attacks with this because I can, and that'll pull me, ooh, look, an Obliterate, and ooh, look, even more importantly, I pull the Dark Factory. Oh, because I already have a backup soldier, that's why. So we just need to find a way to get that Exodia head into the hand, which isn't always the easiest thing. What I do here is I go for an Obliterate just to get that thing off the field, send Incarnate, because that still works. I try to pull as many Exodia pieces to my hand real quick, just before anything bad happens to him. I can still defend myself with this Nightmare play, but I need... Oh, well, I pulled a Sangan, so that'll get me the head I need. So, Sangan comes out. I link it away just so I can get Sangan's effect. That brings me the head to the grave, and I just need one more Exodia piece back. One, I could wait till next turn, use a normal summon to get one of these pieces out there and just let it be destroyed, and then I could Dark Factory. But I brought out the Apprentice Witchling, which means attack! And that'll bring me back the final piece. Duel. I think this was a pretty good one. We are going to start off with that reinforcement I was talking about. Still, if you're going to run heavier, if you're going to run multiple arrays, I would still suggest using a reinforcement, because another spell in the graveyard and thins it out. It's just that's one of the cards that didn't make the cut. We go for our little Jester. Yeah, you see the Jester's usually pretty good. We start up to get us another card to start the plays off. This time, I don't really plan on using the normal summon. I mean, I could have saved it for Sangan, but we go for the getting the Ray into the graveyard, and that'll get us Kagari to get that back to my hand, and then we are not going to play it so we can use the full effect of Shizuku to get another one to the hand. This lets us go crazy next turn, and since we have a Ray in the graveyard, I'm pretty confident that we can at least protect ourselves for one turn. So, we are probably going to lose our Shizuku here. So he is going with a whole bunch of cyber stuff. And, yep, he attacks Shizuku. It is destroyed, and Ray comes out to defend me against the second attack. And I only take one real big attack of damage, so I still have plenty of life points left. He switches out to get some better setup, but it's not gonna matter because, well, let's start up our Sky Striker plays. We're gonna get that Hornet. We're gonna get that Kagari. We're gonna get that back to our hand, and we have a lot of engages to work with here. So we're gonna do that, get a whole bunch of draw power, use the spellbook to thin out the deck even further. Then we're just gonna use that to get rid of that because we can. Then we have our Exodia head in the hand from all that draw power, and we still have a full hand of plays. We're going to destroy the toughest looking thing on the field. Oh look, he protects it, fantastic. We're gonna put the Sangan on the field, and we're going to link it away to use Sangan's effect and pull an Exodia piece to my hand, and Cerberus will be able to co-link here. So we're going to once again utilize our opponent's cards against us, discard and, well, destroy one of his things, and get me another draw. Hey look, Treasure Panda and Backup Soldier. Do I even need it though? I don't know. Well, maybe we'll use that next turn. I got some Sky Striker cards that I can't use, unfortunately, because I have a card in my main monster zone, Cerberus. Normally he would be up here, but obviously we wanted to utilize our opponent's cards against him. So we're not really going to be able to do anything until our Cerberus is destroyed. But the second he is... Oh. Well, you can't destroy him because he's co-linked, so he has to burn an effect. And this could be the killer. But I'm sitting on a back row. That got a little close, so we take him over with that Widow Anchor. And I'm just begging that he doesn't have any burn damage. He gets it back, so it looks like it's now or never for me. But I have Treasure Panda and Backup Soldier and 2 pieces in hand, so it's a really easy win. We're going to go for the plays just in case I have to bait something out, but I probably wasn't thinking. I just didn't want to read the cards, let's be honest. So that start up another card, and I got another Exodia piece anyway, so I didn't even need it at all. In fact, that might have potentially hurt me, but luckily I have enough monsters in the graveyard So I'm just going to link these away just to get those Exodia pieces away. And then I'll pop the backup soldier down at the end of this turn. Skull Dread, because why not? Psh, might as well keep playing. And I have, I believe, 2 backup soldiers on the field. No, but I have a bunch of other potential things to use aside from backup soldier. And I lay out my entire hand in case he's going to try to destroy something. Get those massive bait tactics. But realistically, the first card that's played will mean I activate backup soldier and win the game. So as you can see, this is probably the most consistent Exodia deck I've ever built. I think it has like a 90% win rating right now, but of course, as I mentioned, it's not going anywhere near the meta because there are so many ways to counter it. You just get one of these pieces out of the graveyard and I lose automatically. You banish something, I lose automatically. I do have a couple of Pot of Acquisitivenesses to throw in here just to counter that a little bit, but it's not really hard protection for it, and this also does slow down the deck a little bit. But if you guys do enjoy some Exodia, you enjoy trolling people a little bit, and you enjoy a good deck, you might want to try something like this out. If you have any changes or other fun cards that you would add to the deck, let me know those in the comments. I'm always down to make little adjustments to this deck, but for now, it's definitely my favorite Exodia deck, at least until Sky Strikers gets a very likely nerf. Anyway, hopefully you guys have enjoyed. Leave a like on this video if you have, and I suppose subscribe to the channel. We'll see you next time.